topics and opinions expressed on the following show are solely those of the hosts and their guests and not those of W4WN Radio, its employees, or affiliates. We make no recommendations or endorsements for radio show programs, services, or products mentioned on air or on our web. No liability, explicit or implied, shall be extended to W4WN Radio, its employees, or affiliates. Any questions or comments should be directed to those show hosts. Thank you for choosing W4WN Radio.
This is Beyond Confidence with your host, Divya Parekh. Do you want to live a more fulfilling life? Do you want to live your legacy and achieve your personal, professional, and financial goals? Well, coming up on Divya Parekh's Beyond Confidence, you will hear real stories of leaders, entrepreneurs, and achievers who have stepped into discomfort, shattered their status quo, and are living the life they want. You will learn how relationships are the key to achieving your aspirations and financial goals. Moving your career or business forward does not have to happen at the expense of your personal or family life, or vice versa. Learn more at www.divyaparekh.com, and you can connect with Divya at contact@divyaparekh.com. This is Beyond Confidence, and now here's your host, Divya Parekh.
Good morning, listeners. It's Tuesday, and I want to share a very quick story. So just recently, I heard back from a reader who got his copy of the AI agency. And surprisingly, what he did was he took one of the frameworks and dropped it in the cloud and said, build a plan for me around that for his project management project. And he was able to build it out. So if you are in the cusp of anywhere in your profession where you are thinking, okay, what is the newness I can bring? What are the thinkings that I need to bring in when I'm talking about AI? What are the metacognitive abilities? How to think about how we think about AI? How can I develop that? Then the AI agency is the book for you because it keeps your soul while being able to tackle AI, which is now in most of the parts of our lives. So let's continue and bring in our guest. Welcome, Ron.
Yes.
So
thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So tell us, what got you into medicine?
It's interesting. After I graduated college, I was accepted at law school. And I was not, because of active duty military service, I was not able to actually go to law school. And when I got out before law school started, I needed a job. So I worked part-time, I worked full-time actually on an environmental health study having to do with asbestos. And working with the doctor who was in charge of it and having a very good friend who was in medical school, I thought, I think I want to be a doctor. So I actually had to go back to school for 2 years to be a pre-med to actually qualify for medical school. But my heart was always into wanting to help people. That's just who I am.
And as you continued your medical journey, did you focus on any specialty?
Well, people was my specialty. But then I got my second year of medical school, I got a friend of mine who had become a yoga teacher, a woman named Carolyn, had invited me to take a yoga class with her. And it made no sense time-wise. I was in a library, in the hospital, I was studying, I was in lectures, I had no free time. But she cajoled me into taking a yoga class. And in this yoga class and the meditation that followed, I was able to actually notice all the stress that I was carrying in my body and my mind that was interfering with my life. And that became opening the door for me to explore, how does stress really affect our life and our well-being? Not just for me personally, but also for the patients that I was seeing. And that opened things up to a whole new journey for me.
So where did that journey take you?
Wow, that's a great question. Through so many things, through biofeedback, through relaxation, through being a consultant to Johnson & Johnson and Westinghouse as they were setting up their employee stress management programs, to providing lectures and teaching webinars and actually there weren't even webinars, seminars for people to learn how to actually first start with recognizing the stress they were carrying, and then from there going on to how to address it. And then it led me into greater holistic medicine, where I wanted to address the whole person, not just conventional medicine treats people like car mechanics. You get one person for this, one person for that. And I was always interested in who is this whole person who's coming to see me. So that became my interest.
I see. So a lot of organizations are most of the organizations have some sort of wellness programs for their employees. So based on your experience, what would you say are some of the key things that people need to include either in their existing programs or if they're thinking of starting out their wellness programs?
Certainly yoga is a way, or Tai Chi are ways to get in touch with the body. Because like it or not, we live in our body. Even though we think with our mind all the time, we actually reside in our body. And I write about in my book about how our body is our best friend. I mean, think about this. Who else would put up with us 24/7? Our heart doesn't take a vacation. Our lungs don't take vacations. Our bodies are here to serve us. So something that has to do with body awareness would be a first step. And then either relaxation or meditation as a way to learn how to integrate body and mind.
You talk about body. So let's explore when you can be in a difficult situation so many times, especially in today's day and age. People are faced with uncertainty all the time, whether it is geopolitical or talking about artificial intelligence or getting laid off or rising prices. I mean, it can be from any number of things. Life is uncertain.
Right.
So, what happens in the first few moments? What happens to the body when stress hits people?
Well, people have different kinds of reactions to stress in the moment, as you're talking about. And I call them first reactions because I've come to recognize that we're not all the same. So we are different. And to say that here's what happens to everyone is not accurate. So for some people, it will happen in a psychological way where it will start, oh, I'm stressed about that. It probably won't work out. They go into their negative thinking and they spiral into the not okayness that I call it. The second level tends to be at an emotional level where people can get impatient and then irritable. That's my usual first reaction. And God bless my partner who points it out to me when I'm having a first reaction. And rather than getting upset with her, I say, thank you, because I wasn't aware that I was having a first reaction. And I want to be able to move out of it. So psychological and emotional are the first two. The third one is physical in the body. People's shoulders will get tight. Their back will hurt. Their tummies will get upset. And the fourth category is behavioral. People will start to eat. They will start to talk too fast, or they might withdraw. So it's a combination of those things. So, you talk in one of your talks, I think it was a TED talk, you talked about the cake, baking the cake of life. And the first step is awareness. So for me, the first reactions are noticing how do we react? What is our awareness about how we react? Unfortunately for human beings, we tend to, when we notice our reactions, we tend to then add on a judgment. Oh, I'm doing that again, or I shouldn't have that. Well, you can become aware of your judgments. Okay, so now I'm being judgmental. Okay, it's just a first reaction. Let's be aware of it and then move on from that.
Mm-hmm. No, and you laid it out very powerfully that it is happening at different levels, and it's important to be aware of what is triggering you and where is it happening.
I remember a story from many years ago. I used to have a staff meeting before my office hours opened. And we're talking about something, I don't remember the context of it, but it triggered something in one of my assistants. And she said, stop. And she held up a little sign that said, I'm having a first reaction. And like she was honest enough to admit it. And we all kind of laughed at it like it wasn't a big deal. At least she was honest about having a first reaction. You take a breath and we've got to move on. But I interrupted you, so I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, it's completely fine. We're just having an organic conversation here. So, as you mentioned, being honest with yourself is also important, and that is part of being awareness. So that was an important layer that you shared. So now, as we are talking about, one is aware, but that said, our brain operates on so many default modalities, which are our habits. So, how can our habits fuel our awareness or take us towards wellness or put us into detriment?
Well, I talk about how to create stress management habits. It's so
Hmm.
perfect you use the word. So much of our system is habitual, and you can't change a habit until you become aware of it. As I said earlier, one of the things is human beings are masters in self-judgment and being self-critical. So we notice a habit we don't like, and automatically we throw a judgment on it. Okay, so that to me is a first reaction to awareness. And if we can just simply label it as, oh, that's just a first reaction, it's not that big a deal, we can then begin to create new habits. Now, in the moment, there's two levels of stress reactions that happen. One is in the moment, and the second one is the chronic things that happen. But in the moment, we can use what I initially called stress management breath, but I've since relabeled it called the Goldilocks breath, where it's
Mhm.
not too deep, it's not too shallow, it's just right. And if we take that Goldilocks breath, what will happen is our body and mind will physiologically begin to de-stress. We're often taught, oh, take a deep breath. There's two problems with that. One is, first of all, if people don't know how to do it, they will stress their body out anyway. Secondly, if you're in a situation with other people, you don't want to bring attention to yourself by taking a deep breath. People are going to go, oh, what's wrong with you? The Goldilocks breath, kind of you sneak in a little breath there, nobody notices, and you kind of begin to quiet down so you can be more attentive to what's going on.
Mm-hmm. That's very powerful. Now, so many times what happens is people are so caught up in the moment that they've even forget to sneak in that Goldilocks breath.
Right.
So what can they do so that the outcome sticks?
So this becomes developing stress management habits. And the habit is such an important word because we all developed stress habits. So no one needs to teach us how to be stressed. We're really masters of that. But creating new habits, so periodically during the day, and I write prescriptions for patients to say periodically stop and take a Goldilocks breath. Notice what's going on with you. If you're doing well, keep going. If you're feeling stressed, interrupt it with a few more Goldilocks breaths. But the awareness is not something that happens just once because you and I are talking about it. It's cultivating a new habit. It's like baking a cake, as you've talked about. You may not do it right the first time, but you practice. And as you practice, you get better at it. That's all. And life is a practice. Meditation, it's called the practice of meditation, not the perfection of meditation. The practice of medicine, not the perfection of medicine. Life is we just continue to practice to do better and better.
Absolutely. And I really like how you said it. Life is a practice. You implement it, and if you take a look at any sports person, even though they may be at the height of their excellence, and yet they're going through the same drills, they are working on it consistently. So that's the key.
I agree with you. Yeah. The
And
practice doesn't bring perfection, it brings improvement. That's all.
absolutely.
I used to joke with friends, I used to say we're all whips, works in progress. And my mother had a great phrase that I picked up. She used to say, you don't have to be doing bad to want to do better. You can always go from good to gooder. So we can love that phrase. You can always want to do better without creating too much stress.
Absolutely. And you also talk about humor in your book.
Yes, who doesn't like to laugh? And it's a great physiologic phenomena, and it affects the body. The mind-body connection is so powerful. If we hear something sad, we frown or we maybe even cry. Our body reacts really quickly. If we hear something funny, we smile. So there's a great body-mind connection. One of my favorite quotes is from a woman named Esther Hicks. And she says, sometimes we are limited in our choices of thought. In our choices of action. However, we are never limited in our choices of thought. At any particular moment, we can think whatever we want and no one can interfere with that. So if something's going on, it's like reframing things. Oh, that happened. So one of the funny things that I've developed for myself is when I drop something, I always go, oh, that just proves gravity's still working. How great. It's like to find some humor in things.
Yeah, no, that's powerful. So, what are some of the ways to develop humor? Because I respect comedians and the material that they bring, and the writers, and anyone in the humor industry.
So can I tell a short joke here now?
Please, absolutely. Go ahead.
Okay. So this man goes to see the doctor and he says, Doctor, my wife's got a hearing problem. I ask her a question. I don't hear an answer back. Doctor thinks about it. He goes, try this. Go home, stand 10 feet away from your wife, ask her a question. If you don't hear a response, go 5 feet away. If you still don't get a response, stand 3 feet away. And if you still don't get a response, whisper in her ear. So the guy goes home and he stands 10 feet away from his doctor and he goes to his wife, goes, honey, what's for dinner? Doesn't hear anything, 5 feet, 3 feet, nothing. Finally, he whispers in her ear, goes, honey, what's for dinner? And she says, I already told you 3 times. So the problem wasn't her hearing, it was his hearing. And it's funny, it's also a metaphor for me about how we often assume the other person is at fault. He was assuming his wife was having a hearing problem and he wasn't owning up to the fact the problem was his. Isn't that how we go through life? It's the other person's fault.
Absolutely.
That doesn't work out very well, particularly in relationships.
Yeah. No, I think so. We need to have more doctors like that.
Yeah, I agree.
So we have talked about humor, and you also talk about the stress model. Shed some light on that.
Okay. So the stress model is something I developed over time where there's some external event or some stress or whatever it is that occurs. Then we have our, what I call, I've mentioned, the first reactions, and they come in 4 categories. Psychological, where we start to worry, we start to get upset, we start to self-judge ourselves, or emotional. For example, impatience or irritability. This is where I show up. And as I mentioned earlier, God bless my partner Denise, she points it out to me. Or we have physical problems, tummy aches, headaches, back pain in the moment. Or we have behavioral things. And you can see people reach for food, people reach for a cigarette, people get distracted by something. So the trick there is to notice our first reactions. And I can't say without judgment, because none of us is without judgment, with less judgment. And let's label, I'm having a first reaction. It doesn't mean anything more than that. I'm not a bad person because I'm having a first reaction. I'm human. Human beings have first reactions. And then if we use some Goldilocks breaths, it kind of moves us out of that and back into the moment so we can pay attention to what's happening in our life at that time. Now, one of the interesting things is that people have different first reactions and people react differently. For example, if someone makes some comment about something, I might take it as a judgment about me. The other person goes, what's the big deal? So it's in and of itself, it's not it's not something bad. It's just something we react to. And then as we build on our stress management habits, we can begin to build in some other self-awareness tools. Practicing the Goldilocks breath, practicing yoga, practicing meditation, practicing relaxation, practicing exercise, practicing eating slower. A funny thing, patients often tell me, I just overeat because I don't have a lot of time. And I said, really? Had you ever considered about eating less in that shorter amount of time? Oh, what a novel concept, as opposed to having to shove it all in. In the book, I talk about, a lot of things are written about mind-body effect. And there's so much documentation about that. And it's about managing stress. It's about as an adjunct to healing, using the mind-body effect. But rarely have I read people talking about the body-mind effect. And the example that I use is if we overeat and we get a tummy ache. Now, I know you and I don't do this, but we probably know people who do this. They get a tummy ache. So that's our body reacting, but then our mind feels stressed because we have a tummy ache. So it goes in both directions. The mind and body are so intimately connected. And as I said, as you and I both said earlier, life is a process. It's a practice. You can only do better. And if you're doing better, give yourself a pat on the back for doing better, as opposed to, oh, I'm still not good enough.
Yeah, the body-mind effect. And you talked about people overeating it. And sometimes it's just a habit, and sometimes it's a trigger where people are experiencing discomfort, and to distract themselves, they may soothe themselves using food or binge watching or alcohol or smoking, as you mentioned.
Right.
Because so when we are talking about, people seeking comfort in those, they get rewards. And can you talk to us about that when people are leaning into those habits, what is it that they're getting out of it?
Well, they're getting relief from the stress. The habits we talked about tend to diminish the sensation of stress. It doesn't diminish the stress, physiologic stress in the body, but it somehow numbs the sensation of the stress. So we feel like it's helping ourselves out. When in fact, when stress perpetuates itself, it will often show up in other areas. High blood pressure, the habits of overeating can lead to adult onset diabetes. There's a lot of other things that are chronic digestive problems or chronic shoulder problems. So just by numbing the sensation doesn't get rid of the effects of stress long term. And in the work that I do with patients, I try to teach them, okay, let's go. We can't wave a magic wand. It's still in back order. I don't have it yet. We can't wave the magic wand to get rid of it all, but we can chip away at your reactions. We can chip away at how you're feeling. We can chip away on noticing more what you're doing and with less judgment. And the less judgment that's there, the easier it is to change a habit and create a new habit, what I call stress management habits.
Mm-hmm. And how you said it, let's chip it away. That is so powerful, because that judgment is what keeps people in that spiral and in that loop. Because as you mentioned, that let's say, if they're drinking alcohol, or if you're just going for chocolate or doom scrolling, and I go for chocolate all the time.
What flavor? What kind? I like chocolate also.
Oh, all kinds.
You don't have to answer. I'm making a joke.
Yeah, no, all kinds. And of course, I'll bring different kinds of chocolates. That's my, how should I call my cheating time? So what happens is, like, if you think about in the long run, right? A lot of people will come back and feel guilty about it. Oh, I shouldn't have done that.
I try not to get into an all or none phenomenon unless someone is doing something that's really destructive for them. If they're over drinking or over smoking, telling them to stop doesn't end it. For the smoking in particular, if so many people have said, they're smoking. I said, how much are you smoking? And I said, well, I'm smoking about 16 cigarettes a day. So I say, okay, can you cut down to 8 a day? I think I can do that. So now we've already cut smoking in half already. So we're making progress. But to tell someone to stop with the bad habit, cold turkey, it's theoretically nice, but it rarely works. But as we're talking, I was thinking, what I've noticed in the moment, the greatest stress management interruption is the feeling of gratitude. When someone is feeling grateful about whatever it is, a family member, a loved one, a pet, a vacation, whatever it is, when you feel grateful about something, stress cannot exist. It can exist before and it can exist afterwards. But in a moment of truly feeling grateful, life is good. And each of us can find things to feel grateful for. And it doesn't really matter what it is. Who cares why you're feeling grateful? As long as you invoke the feeling of feeling grateful, life in that moment is good. Let's take another one of my famous habits of writing prescriptions for people. Stop 3 times a day and simply feel grateful about something. And people tell me their lives change because then they start looking for things to feel grateful for. And when you're doing that, oh my God, life becomes such a different version.
Absolutely. And what can people do when they're in the guilt mode? Like, they go through the habits, and we know that we have talked about it, that they are habitual. People are not even aware of them. But when they have done a habit, when they've done something, they didn't want to do it. They did that to numb themselves, and now they're caught in that trap of guilt. So how would people handle that guilt trap?
There's 2 things that come to mind. When
Mm-hmm.
someone has that type of mental habit, I will write their prescription and I'll say, I want you to feel guilty 3 times today. So when you're feeling guilty, know that you're being a good patient, you're following Dr. Dushkin's prescriptions, and kind of make it into a light thing rather than, oh, there I go again. So people find that funny, and I say, at a follow-up appointment, I say, how are you doing with the guilt? Oh, I'm doing it 3 times a day. It feels great. So we've taken some of the sting out of it,
Mm-hmm.
some of the self-judgment out of it. The other thing is I come back to gratitude. In the
Yeah.
moment of feeling grateful, over the years, I've developed a habit for myself, a gratitude meditation when I go to bed. I can't fall asleep without feeling at least 3 things I feel grateful for from that day. And it like moves a lot of the stress in the day out of the picture because I'm feeling grateful.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. No, some very powerful insights over here, Ron. So, how can people connect with you? Where can they find you? Where can they find your book?
Okay. So my book is called Manage Your Stress, Manage Your Life. It's on Amazon.
Mm-hmm.
People have heard of Amazon, I assume. Um, One of the things about the book that I'm really proud of, it's on having a conversation with the reader rather than a lecture. I didn't want to lecture people because people get lectured all the time and they turn it away. It's a conversation. It's an easy conversation about how to address a lot of the things we're talking about, more things that we're talking about. Also, in the midst of being a stress management consultant, and I do private consultations for people about managing stress, I'm also a holistic medical doctor, and I do consultations with people, very often telemed conversations. And my website is Dr. Dushkin, DrDushkin.com. So people can reach out to me that way if they want to, and talk about whether my approach to healing might fit for them. I need to talk to each person before they make an appointment because I want to make sure they understand how I approach healing and make sure that what they're wanting help with is something that I can be helpful for. So it's not like just sign up and make an appointment. No, I want to be very person specific. And on the website, there is a short little video about me talking about my approach to healing, so people can get a feeling for me before they do anything else.
That's powerful. And do you have any last minute tips for our audience?
Yeah, know that you're on a journey and enjoy the journey as much as you can, because who knows when it's over. The only thing after we're born, people used to say your death and taxes. For some people, it's not even taxes. The only thing after we're born is death. So enjoy your journey and love the people that are close to you. When you're really loving someone, again, stress gets minimized because gratitude and love, like, what's more powerful than that?
Absolutely. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for
And
having me, Divya.
absolutely. And thank you for sharing your powerful insights. Thank you,
You're
wonderful
welcome.
audience, for being part of our family. Please reach out to us. Let us know how we can serve you and how we can support you so you can live the best life you deserve. And thank you, Juan, for being a tech genius. And
Thank
keep on
you.
care. Until next time.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for being part of Beyond Confidence with your host, Divya Parekh. We hope you have learned more about how to start living the life you want. Each week on Beyond Confidence, you hear stories of real people who have experienced growth by overcoming their fears and building meaningful relationships. During Beyond Confidence, Divya Parekh shares what happened to her when she stepped out of her comfort zone to work directly with people across the globe. She not only coaches people how to form heart connections, but also transform relationships to mutually beneficial partnerships as they strive to live the life they want. If you are ready to live the life you want and leverage your strengths, learn more at www.divyaparekh.com. And you can connect with Divya at contact@divyaparekh.com. We look forward to you joining us next week.